Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my LinkedIn Lives. I'm Jasmine Navarro, certified wellbeing expert, working with educational institutions and companies, helping them support their family wellbeing challenges. And as you know, every week I interview different experts who make a difference. And today I'm super excited to be interviewing Aaron. Hi, Aaron. Thank you for coming.
Hi, Jasmine. How are you? Thank you for having me on your LinkedIn Live. Very excited to be here. Very excited to talk about this particular topic today. I feel like it's a topic that has garnered a lot of interest,
Definitely.
and is something that's pretty close to my heart as well in terms of things that I've done over the years and how I've been able to utilize that and build on that and learn new skills and things like that as well.
Amazing, amazing. I'm so excited. And I've had so many comments about this as well. So, can you tell us about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I am a digital marketing specialist. I currently work for a company called Eventigrate, which is an events tech company. So they deal with all kinds of weird and wonderful tech bits and pieces, but some of the more traditional stuff in terms of stage design, lighting, but also moving up into the more advanced things such as AI, large language models, VR, MR, what they call XR, and integrating those sorts of things. So, working with huge brands, working with government organizations in a range of industries and sectors. And my role is to direct and organize the marketing strategy for the entire group and company. And develop better relationships with other organizations, grow the presence, generate more leads, and ultimately bring in extra revenue through the marketing efforts that we do. In terms of my skill set, I have been in the world of digital marketing for 12 years now. I've seen it and done it all. I've been part of the evolution and the revolution of digital marketing. I've run adverts on Google and Meta platforms. I've done SEO. I've created content. I've built websites. I've developed content plans. I've done strategic planning. I've worked with massive brands. I've worked with startups. Um, you know, all aspects of social media and digital marketing has been something that over the past 12 years I've been involved in. Um, so my primary role is to help businesses and organizations to grow and to put a structure and process in place to make businesses scalable, repeatable, and predictable. The beautiful thing about marketing is that it makes the very boring things look very sexy, but the boring stuff is really what makes the world go round, right? Without the boring stuff, without the processes,
Mhm.
without the organizational structure of those things, then none of this is really possible. Which leads us on to the sort of area of creativity and talent.
Yeah.
Um, so do you want me to
Yeah,
introduce the subject of what we're talking about
sure.
today?
Well, yes, please. And tell us. And I just have to say, by the way, it's so impressive, everything that you're saying and your wealth of knowledge. It just blows my mind. Some of the things you said went over my head. So, yeah, no, it's super impressive, everything that, you've done and how you work and what you know and everything. And yeah, I'm lost for words, to be honest. But yeah, please introduce your title and tell us why you chose it for today.
Thank you. So the title of this LinkedIn Live today is The Talent Myth and How Excellence is Actually Created. And Talent and excellence are, very sort of like elusive but highly sought after things. Um, you know, we often we know people who seem to have this innate God-given ability that just seems to transcend them from, your average individual person to some, supersonic genius that, seems to have been given the gift by, by the various gods that there are. Um, And it can be quite a frustrating thing to witness because it can seem as though that individual is different or separate from everybody else,
Or
um,
lucky. Mm.
or lucky, right? Absolutely spot on. And, you know, that then sort of helps, or doesn't help, but it makes people think that that these sorts of heights are unachievable. And look, don't get me wrong, not everybody has the ability to reach certain heights, as we will eventually find out. Um, but that doesn't mean that, talent or excellence is unachievable by everybody. Um, and funnily enough, there's actually a process and a formula to be able to achieve excellence and develop a talent or skill in any field, any area that you want. And I'm just going to flick over to my notes here. I've got quite a few extensive notes on this sort of
Amazing.
thing.
Yeah.
But like I said, I really want to start by challenging the traditional view of talent being extraordinary or innate. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Um, there is absolutely no evidence to suggest that anyone is born with any talent for anything ever. Okay.
Wow.
And the reason for this is because if you look at this as a purely evolutionary thing, right? Um, Human society has evolved quicker than humans have evolved. Even 100 years ago, you know, well, maybe a little bit longer than that. Let's say 200 years ago for the sake of it, right? 200 years ago, there or thereabouts, cars didn't exist. Okay. There was no such thing as racing. There was no such thing as Formula One or anything like that. Yet, present day, people are paid millions and millions of dollars a year to drive cars really, really fast around a track. What's the evolutionary need for that? There is none. And
Yeah.
yet, we constantly hear things like, um, you know, skilled driver or gifted driver, or has this, unbelievable ability to do things that other people aren't able or can't do. And you look at this across the spectrum of sports, of art, all different kinds of things. Well, why is there a need for these people to have an innate or born ability to do these things? There isn't. Okay. So it's really, really important that we understand that talent does not exist from birth. It cannot exist from birth. You cannot be in a position as an infant, as a newborn, to have some particular ability to do something because that's just not how it works.
No.
Right?
Isn't it in genes? Like, could something be
It,
passed through genes?
there, we will come to this, and there is an
Okay, okay.
element of this,
Yeah.
uh, but that plays such an insignificant part of things
Wow.
in comparison. And don't get me wrong, look, there are genes that are passed down. For example, um, in the world of athletics, Jamaicans typically have done better in running events than other
Okay.
nations in the world. So
Yeah.
there is some sort of genetic aspect that gives them a slight advantage, but that's not the reason why Jamaicans typically end up being better
Yeah.
sprinters or Ethiopians and Kenyans better at long distance running. There's no gene that says that this allows them to do that. So it's really, really important that we look at this from a completely
Okay.
blank slate, and start to understand that this, much like everything else, excellence is something that can be predictably and scalably produced. So, um, how, let me ask you a question. And I am leading you into a bit of a trap here. So,
Oh
if
no. Okay.
um, what do they say about practice? What's the little phrase that people
Well,
use?
there's two. There's two. So there's either practice makes perfect, or what was it? Practice makes progress.
Okay. Um, Both of those are completely wrong,
Oh, really?
right? because practice doesn't make perfect,
No,
and
nothing's perfect.
practice
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily make progress. Okay. Now, if you consider, for example, that a better turn of phrase would be perfect practice makes perfect, or even better than that, perfect practice makes progress, right? So
Okay.
imagine, and again, you'll know people like this as well, people who have done things for years and years and years and years and years, but never really sort of gotten past a
True.
particular level of things, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
see this a lot in golf, all right?
Oh, okay.
So golf is a popular sport globally, obviously. Many people, many of my friends, my stepdad, he loves playing golf. I have no desire to play golf. It's not the kind of sport that I'm interested in, if I'm honest. Not enough running around. Maybe as I get a bit older, it might appeal to me a little bit more. Um, but people spend years and hours, going to the driving range. Okay, well, what by the thought process of practice makes progress or practice makes perfect,
Yeah.
the longer you spend doing something, that should equate to you getting better at it, but it doesn't, right? Because if you don't understand what you're trying to achieve when
Mm.
you are practicing, all you're doing is exercising.
Yeah,
Okay.
repetition, just repeating the same thing. So you're sort of in the same, could just be in the same situation, not moving. Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Okay, so this is what you'll find, right? Is that people will do the same thing, and they'll get frustrated because they're like, "Oh, man, I've been doing this
Oh,
for years. I've been working so hard." And people think if I work
yeah.
harder, if I spend more time at it, then I will get better. Well,
Wow.
the reality is that no, you won't. You might get fitter, you might get stronger, you might get, more well versed at these things, and
Yeah.
eventually find a way to, get a fraction of, an improvement. But if you don't have focused practice, then what's the point? And the example that I will give you is Tiger Woods, right? So, and this is what the top performers end up doing as well, is they will practice the most difficult things, right? So the thing is by the way that traditional thought process is that if I practice, I'll get better at it. Okay, which will
Yeah,
make the
yeah.
hard things easy. And then
Okay.
now, what the top professionals do is that they practice the things that they're rubbish at, and they
Mm.
will practice them like they're good at them. Okay.
Okay.
Now that's a bit counterintuitive because if they're rubbish at them, that makes it difficult and they are less likely to achieve the result that they want.
Yeah.
And so um, they might get frustrated by it and then want to stop, right? We have a
Yeah.
tendency as individuals to do the things that get us the result that we want, right? So if you're constantly practicing the things that are incredibly difficult for you to do and continue to be difficult, okay, they don't necessarily get any easier because they are so incredibly difficult, then you start to find that this is where you actually improve. Now, there is more to this. This is the really juicy good bit as well. Okay, so for example, Tiger Woods, he spent an awful lot of time in sand traps, and specifically a sand trap where there's like a bank. So the bed would be here, and then there's like the grass bank that runs around here. And he would practice shots where his ball, he would just step on balls in the bank of the sand trap, and he would practice these unbelievably tough shots where he has to get the ball up and over the sandbank onto the green and close to the pin. Okay. Most pros, for two reasons, don't practice this. Number one, they're good enough not to get the ball in the sand trap. Number two, because it's hard and they don't like to, and it doesn't help them. It doesn't make them feel good that they're constantly sucking at getting the ball in the hole.
Yeah.
All right. But Tiger Woods, repeatedly practice these incredibly difficult shots, most of the time not getting it right. But when it came to crunch time and his ball was stuck in a sand trap in the, in the Masters, guess who pulled it off, right? So
Yeah.
he was able to do this because he practiced this incredibly difficult thing consistently. And when it actually came time to it, he had prior knowledge of how to do this thing. Yeah. So the number one thing is obviously deliberate practice. Okay. So this means things that are designed to improve your performance. Now, this is all well and good, but the other thing that you need to have with that is feedback from an expert. Okay. So you need to have structured
Oh,
practice.
yeah.
It's not just about, you know, practicing that one thing. It's about, "Oh, okay, so look, that, the ball was there and you did this. The feedback is that you now need to adjust your body a little bit to do this. You need to swing the club slightly differently to do this, right? So you need that really fine uh, feedback that comes from a professional as well. So you need to have focused practice on the things that you're not good at, and then you need to have feedback from an expert in order to do them. Okay. Now, again, I'm not saying that everybody needs to be at that kind of level, but um, you do need to have feedback from somewhere. Otherwise, you don't have information. Was that good? Was it bad? I don't know. Is there things I can do to improve? I mean, you can find an expert in all different areas of you know things that you're doing in your life. Okay.
Yeah. And
So
are you just, yeah, sorry.
that's all right. Go on, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, are you just talking about professionalism? Well, this is anything, yeah? This is
So
anything.
this is the brilliant thing about this is that this can be um, put into absolutely any aspect of your life. Okay. And I am going to talk about how we can relay this into the professional world, the working world,
Yeah.
and things like that as well. So,
Yeah.
these three aspects here are the core aspects of talent, of excellence. Okay. Number one, you have to identify your areas of weakness and you have
Wow.
to practice on those things with a defined goal. Okay. Um, the second thing, sorry, the third thing is that you need to make it progressively harder as well. So identifying your areas of weakness. Okay. People hate to do that, right? They don't like to do the things that they don't like. Then you need to identify practice that focuses on improving that area that you are bad at, and you need to have specific goals attached to that thing.
Mm, yeah. It seems like, sorry, I just have to
Um,
say,
then
yeah,
lastly, obviously with that feedback coming in, and the last bit that I have, and then sorry, you can carry
sorry,
on
yeah,
then,
carry on.
is that you need to then develop practice that gets progressively harder again.
Oh, sounds hard. But but if sort of when you were, I mean, when you were saying that, it sort of reminded me of working on things that make you feel uncomfortable to get out of your comfort zone to grow.
Hmm.
Sort of the same concept, isn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And this does help with the sort of confidence things, right? Because, for example, if you are afraid of giving a presentation, or you are afraid of trying a new creative idea, or you are afraid of managing a team, or you are afraid of doing a particular type of work or something like that, right? Then you need to identify that you're bad at that,
Yeah.
identify areas in which you can improve. Like, let's say that you're terrible at giving presentations, but you're good at the execution side of things in your job. But in order for you to get that promotion, in order for you to get that salary increase, in order for you to get the title, all of these kind of things, you need to recognize and identify that your presentation skills are poor, and then you need to go and identify training methods or practice methods that will help you improve those things, and then go and do those things. Now, typically, you would go and find a presentation coach, okay, who would be
Mm.
able to give you specific training on the areas that you're weak on, and then be able to give you immediate feedback that you can then go and improve upon. Once you get good at that, you can then start to go and look at different things. Maybe I have a more dynamic presentation. Maybe I look at doing a presentation to larger groups of people, or maybe I'll start doing a presentation in a different language, right? And so you up
Oh,
the
wow.
level of practice that you need to do. Now, having just heard that, and going all the way back to the start, is it any wonder that there is no possibility that anyone is born with talent? So when we
Mm.
then think about, talent, this is the great secret. Anyone can earn it. Anyone can do it, but you have to do it in a particular format. You have to have a formula in
Mm.
which to do this. Okay,
Yeah.
and you can start to identify these areas, and actually, you'll find that in a very short period of time that you can increase your skill set rather rapidly.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about genes at the very start. You said, "Oh, is it not a genetic thing?" Well, n-
But let me
uh,
just, yeah, can I just say before you say that, before I forget what I'm going to say, but also you, well, now I've forgotten what I've actually forgotten. No, um, because you sort of like some people learn. What about people who learn faster than others, or is it just a case of knowing ourselves? So knowing what setup we need to give ourselves the maximum chance of learning whatever we need to learn. So
yeah. So I mean, like this is actually the sort of thing that I'm coming on to. People will often
okay,
say, "Oh, I'm not very good at this," or "I'm slow
yeah,
learner at this," and memory and cognitive ability do have a role to play in this, but not really. All
oh,
you need to do is find the method that incorporates those three elements that you can relate to best, right? It's like
right.
Einstein said, if you judge a fish's ability to climb a tree, it will always believe that it's stupid. Okay.
Yeah,
But
that must
you have
work.
to find the way that resonates best with you because we do learn in different ways. I'm not going to say that there is one way for everybody to learn, but
Yeah.
there is a formula that we can overlay onto our learning style that will allow us to um, learn faster, right? So the challenge that a lot of people have is that they're only taught this one particular way of doing things, which may or may not resonate with them. So you have to find that way. So I'll tell you a story. There was I think it was in Stanford or something like that. Maybe back in the 80s or something like that. They were doing a psychological and memory test,
Yeah.
and they had all of these champion, memory people come in, and they were just asking them to remember a series of numbers. Okay, there wasn't any particular rhyme or reason to it. They were asking them to remember these numbers. And I think that, after a little while, most people got to something like 13 or 14 sequences of numbers. Um, and these were like, professional guys, they were high intelligence individuals and things like that. And then they had like a control in, and it was just, an average person. And yeah, I think he was actually a student there at the time as well. And he kept coming back and he kept doing these things, and they found that, oh, all of a sudden he's gone up to 20. And then, oh, the week after he'd come back and he was doing 40 numbers. And I think after a series of weeks, he actually got up to about 80 separate numbers. And they were like, how is this possible? This guy isn't anything special. He's got average intelligence. But what had happened is that, and he would say, let's say 9.14, 15.32. And they asked him, Why were you saying the point?" And he was like, "Well, because I'm on the running team, and it was easier for me to help. It was easier
Oh,
for me to identify things in terms of numbers of running times than it was for me to just remember pure numbers. So if I could remember a series of those running times, then it was
yeah,
easy for me, which
yeah,
indicates exactly what I said. You need to find that thing that
yeah.
allows you to overlay on
How
that
your brain works, basically.
how
Yeah.
your brain works, right? Um, so in a matter of weeks, this guy had gone to above world record champion levels of memory, um, without any sort of particular training in that area. But what he did do is find the pattern and rhythm that was right for him. And then he continued to practice it, okay, because he was coming back and he was getting immediate feedback.
For
And there
sure.
was obviously the expert there and things like that. So it is those three steps that allow him to help. So, in terms of genes and genetics, they do have a role to play in some areas, but
Yeah.
in terms of your ability to learn a skill and to produce excellence is not really a major part. So, somebody had commented on there, and again, it's not wrong on on uh,
Post.
the events thing. They said,
Yeah.
uh, excellence is you are what you repeatedly do. Excellence is
Okay.
therefore a habit, not an act. And yes, that is technically true. But when we dive into it a little bit more, actually, that's not true at all. Because you can continually do something very badly, but that doesn't make it excellent. Okay, so you need to have that
Exactly.
identifying the areas that you're bad at dedicated practice with feedback, and then gradually improving or increasing the difficulty of said practice.
You're
Um,
right. It's like feedback from others. And it's the same as when you're working on yourself. It's like self reflection. If you don't have that self reflection and analyze what's just happened and what went wrong, what right, why, then yeah, how do you move forward and grow?
exactly. Sometimes you stumble across it, and
Yeah.
there is a whole other area of things as well of high performance aspects of things like that, and how do you improve doing those different things. And it's the same sort of thing, but like it's additional amount of work that needs to go on into it, and it is for sort of like high performance areas and things. So yes, that is related to what we do here, and often what you'll find is that some of the top performers don't really understand why they've been so successful. They don't really understand what it is that they do that's different. They just do it, which doesn't actually make them really that useful in terms of being able to teach other people
Mhm.
on how to emulate
Yeah.
that side of things. So it is very formulaic, but you do need to understand what the formula is. So um, now the other thing with this as well is that you do obviously need to have some motivation behind it. Intrinsic motivation generally is something that helps people to keep consistent with these sorts of things. Now, you see this, and I'll give you an example. You see this awful lot in the world of martial arts. Okay, the highest dropout rate of any martial art is at the white belt level, for
All
various
right.
reasons. The number one reason being that they don't fancy it, they can't fit it in, they don't want to do it. And before you've even really started or gotten invested, you've given it a go. No, don't want to do it, and off you go. The second highest dropout rate typically is halfway. Why is that? Well, because people have gotten a little bit of skill, they feel a bit more confident about themselves, um, and they've worked really, really hard to get to that point. And it's um, my favorite saying: people don't want to go from rags to riches; they just want to go from rags to better rags. And that's the equivalent of it, right? They're pretty good. They've increased their flexibility. They've learned some, life skills. The average guy on the street wouldn't really be able to do much damage to them anymore because they actually know how to fight. They will have spent a couple of years learning and practicing these self-defense, and they think, okay, well, I don't really need to bother anymore because the intrinsic motivation isn't there. Whatever that was that they started it with, and this is where the external support and advice comes in, right? You need to have that help from your community. You need to have that help from your instructor to keep you going on, right? Because there's only so much that the actual physical act of it can offer you. So,
Right.
intrinsic motivation is also a key driver, but this is something that you need to build up. It's something that you need to work on. So, self-talk, trying these new sorts of things, actually seeing the results of what you get is an important aspect of these things as well, right? So, how many times do we see children quitting sport and things like that because they've tried really hard, but they haven't really gotten anywhere, and they just feel they're on a bit of a hiding to nothing, because they don't feel that they're progressing in that way. And so
Exactly.
therefore they think, oh, I'm not talented at this, or, I can't achieve excellence. Oh, this person seems to not do anything, or, and still get
Yes.
high
Yes.
results and stuff like
Yes.
that. But the
Yes.
reality is that they have that intrinsic drive because they have that support network. Um, you know, don't ever let it be said that one person achieved great success by themselves. It's absolute nonsense. They've done it with a network of individuals over the course of their career, right? You think that,
Wow. So
Lionel
true.
Messi managed to get as good as he is at football on his own? Absolutely no way. He had support from day one, from his parents, from his coaches, financial, emotional, physical, his
Mhm.
wife, other family members, his
Yeah.
teammates. There's no way that this guy could have reached the heights that he had if he was on his own. You need to have that support network, and finding that support network is incredibly important as well. Um, so
And hard. I would say that that's quite a hard part of it as well.
yeah, absolutely. And look, these things don't exist in a vacuum, right? Excellence doesn't
Yeah.
exist by itself. Talent doesn't exist by itself. It's something that needs to be nurtured. And this is why people think that it's this God-given, fleeting, mysterious thing, because um, it's just not something that appears by itself. And it's easier
Yeah.
to believe that it is just
Exactly. It's easier to believe
completely
because
natural.
otherwise, maybe we think, well, then, because then we know that we can do that, and maybe we don't want to put the work in. So it's easier to
But yeah,
think, "Oh, it's so
there is
easy
that
that
element, yeah.
yeah."
It's easier to think that somebody's been blessed or gifted than it is that actually you're just lazy.
Exactly, exactly. And you were talking before about self-belief, so that must come into it as well, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, this is the thing that comes all the way back to, how do you practice? We've got to practice the really difficult things that frustrate you and don't get you anywhere,
Oh,
because you have to, that just seems like a madness if you're if you look at me and I'm doing something that I simply cannot do, and I just keep doing it, most people would think, what is this guy up to? He's bonkers. Why is he doing this? Why is he putting himself through this? Because
yeah,
um, I need to have that understanding of knowing that the process that I'm going through and trusting what it is that I'm doing, that it is
mm,
going to improve what it is that I want to improve down the line. Because otherwise, why would you continually do things that make you feel
yeah,
frustrated or angry or upset? Why would you continue to do something that never works out for you? And that is, part of that self-belief aspect of things. You have to sort of believe that there's a greater thing happening than what it is that's happening at that moment in time.
mm,
So, self-belief is an important part of it. And consequently, this is where we also see a lot of people who struggle with imposter syndrome, right?
yeah,
You see
definitely.
this all the time. My wife, she says, "Oh, I wish I had, your levels of confidence." And to me, I've practiced martial arts for 33 years now, 33, 34 years. I grew up in that environment where confidence was just something that you built up. And to me, it seems like a God-given ability. People
Yeah.
just think, "Oh, wow, this guy's so confident. How did he manage to get so confident? It's just so easy for him." Well, yeah, it
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
because over time, I might seem confident that, now in the present and over the years, but imagine the amount of times where I've not been confident. Imagine the
Wow.
amount of times where I've had to do things that have scared the living daylights out of me. Where I've had to do things where I felt really uncomfortable, and didn't want to be there. you know, and all of these things meant that, you know, I was able to develop that level of confidence that other people haven't, right? And it's not easy, it's not fun, but you know, at the same time, everybody, if you know, if it was easy and it was fun, everybody would have, you know, outstanding levels of confidence, and everyone would be, you know, wealthy and successful, and wouldn't have imposter syndrome. You know, and imposter syndrome, ultimately, I wrote a post about this today as well. It comes down to the fact that you don't have much confidence in yourself, because you think, why am I here, like I don't know what I'm doing. Yes, you do. If you're just not in that particular situation, that you don't think that you deserve to be there. You deserve to be there as much as anybody else, because you know the stuff, right? And it's trusting that process. We, you know, uh, have another little turn of phrase that I like to use. You know, people think, oh, you know, um, when the big occasion comes, you'll rise to it. No, you won't. You never rise to the occasion. You just fall back on your training, because that's the only thing that you can do. And so, if you have this process of difficult training, frustrating training, I can bet your bottom dollar that nobody else is doing these sorts of things. So when it actually comes to crunch time, you do find yourselves in those situations that are difficult and stressful and uncomfortable, that your excellence is going to appear, because all you do is fall back on the muscle memory. And it doesn't matter what it is that you're doing, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's sport, whether it's, you know, public speaking, or anything like that.
Yeah.
You will always fall back on the things that you've done before, because you go into survival mode, and your memory goes back to that vault of stuff that it can draw on. If you've got nothing there, where do you go? We don't go anywhere. So if you have that bank of stuff, you're like, oh, wait, yeah, no, I've been in this situation before. It wasn't really hard, but I kind of know what it is that I'm doing. All right. And then obviously that muscle memory of practice that you've done over time ends up being the thing that happens, because that's the thing that you fall back on. So creating excellence, developing talent is not an easy thing to do, right? Otherwise, we'd all be beautifully talented in all kinds of wonderful things. All right, but it is an attainable thing. Now, the other thing, the last thing that I want to cover, because I know that we're running out of time now.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to cover here is that people will say, "Oh, this is all well and good, but I'm too old for that." Well, yes, if you started doing martial arts like I did from the age of 4, you are very much likely to have a bigger bank of knowledge and skill set and experiences to draw from than somebody who started at the age that I am now. That doesn't mean that you can't develop a similar level of skill in a shorter period of time. It just means that you're going to have to compact that and dedicate and focus and go through a really uncomfortable 3, 4, 5 years. The reality is that you could probably get to my skill set if you were training 2 or 3 times a day, 5, 6 times a week for the next 3 or 4 years. But dedicated, focused, difficult, with feedback, consistently
Mm.
more difficult practice.
Wow.
But
Yes.
nobody wants to do that, right?
No.
Um,
Yeah,
so
there's no shortcut to success, basically, is there really?
no, there absolutely isn't, and you know, there's no shortcut to success. There's no shortcut to building talent. There's no shortcut to excellence. But you can make that long journey go a bit quicker.
Yeah. Can I just ask a quick question? It might sound like a really stupid question, but when you were saying about, working on something that you're really not good at, is that even, does that still make sense to do, even if that's got nothing to do with what you want to achieve? Like, does that still help you, even though it's not connected to what you actually want to achieve? Does it still help you because you're using part of your brain and a different part of your brain? And, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. That's an excellent question, and I will tell you a story, a personal story, because it's about me.
Okay.
Um, and the answer, long and short, is yes. Now, I was never very good at maths. At school, I scraped by my GCSEs with a C in maths, and I was delighted. And I thought, yes, I never have to do maths again. You know, I hated maths. I wasn't good at maths. I tried. I just couldn't get it.
Right.
And to this day, I'm still not superb at maths. My wife is a maths whiz. She can, even basic addition and subtraction and multiplication and division and things like that, I still find a little bit challenging. But I downloaded a brain training app and I worked on my maths and I continue to work on my maths. Does it have that much application in anything that I do? Not really. But it makes me feel really good that I'm
Mm.
improving,
Okay.
and it
Okay.
helps me feel
Confidence.
more confident in my maths abilities. And even
Yeah.
though I'll never have to save the world with my maths, I know that I can do it. All right. And it's not the fact that I can do maths, but the fact that I can improve. There isn't a limit to my abilities. I
Amazing.
can, if I
Mm.
want to improve that, I could do it. If I wanted to get better at
Yeah.
my addition or my,
Yeah.
long
Yes.
multiplication or anything like that, I know the formula. I could do it. And I'm
Yeah.
fairly sure that within 6 months, I could be fantastic at it. Do I
Yeah.
want
Oh,
to?
wow.
Not really, because it's a lot of effort. It's not something that I enjoy, and I don't see the value intrinsically for me.
Mhm. That's
So the
brilliant.
answer is yes. Yes, you should do it because it's going to give you other benefits rather than the immediate one of just being better at maths. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And it just teaches you, shows you that you can learn anything. So it just, like you said, it increases your confidence and it makes you really believe that you can actually learn anything if you work hard at it. So I think
Yeah.
we all know that probably, but I think that just takes it to another level in your subconscious, maybe. So you know it even more, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
But no, thank you so much, Aaron. I've learned so much from you today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you about this. You're so knowledgeable and it's so inspiring. And is there anything else you want to say before we go? And how can people find you?
So yeah, last sort of thing, just to cover on this is that um, there is, or just to recap it, ultimately there is a defined process for creating excellence. If you are struggling to improve certain aspects of your life, or you're struggling with sport, or art, or music, or maths, or any creative area that you want to get better at, then you have to understand that there is a formula to do so. Just turning up doesn't really
It doesn't
make
cut.
that doesn't really cut it. They say that 80% of success is turning up. And yeah, that is true, but that other 20% means that you gotta know what it is that you're doing when you're there, right? So
Yeah.
understand where your areas of weakness are, okay, or non-strength, right? Recognize that you're not good at that sort of thing and that there are things that can be improved. Then start to seek out people who are experts in their fields and ask them to help you by improving those things.
Mhm.
Then get that immediate feedback. Ask those people, or even for yourself, design a process and a program that progressively gets harder. And
Mhm.
you'll find that if you follow that pattern and that process, then you will actually achieve and sustain both talent and excellence. In terms of where to find me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Aaron Roy Taylor. It's got a picture of me on there, as it should. So please feel free to reach out and connect with me. I'd be more than happy to share insights um, about anything that we've spoken about today, as well as digital marketing aspects, and how you can improve whatever it is that you do. So I'm more than happy to have chats with people about anything. Um, so please feel free to find me on LinkedIn, send me a message. And if you've got any questions or anything like that about anything that we've covered today, and you want a little bit more in-depth answer, hopefully I've given as in-depth as I can. And I know that we have overrun by 15 minutes as well. So I really appreciate you sticking around for that for me, Jasmine. Then leave messages on LinkedIn, leave messages on Instagram, and I will be able to respond and give you a more detailed explanation.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Aaron. And just to comment here, very interesting. Unfortunately, I have to drop off. Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you, everyone, for joining here and Instagram and YouTube. Like Aaron said, if you have any questions, comments, please feel free to message Aaron directly. And also you can put something on the post as well. We can get back to you. And Aaron, please, can you, if you can, on the original post, can you leave any of your links to Instagram or anything you have, any information, and then people can easily click there. And thank you, everybody. And thank you so much, Aaron. And I'll see everybody next week.
Thank you.